The whites, the soft whites that look good on the inside of your home are not really going to look as great on the outside, and that's why people have such a hard time finding that perfect creamy white paint color for your exterior. So in today's video, I'm going to give you several warm whites. Now, I say warm whites, but they're actually creams and greiges, but they look like the perfect creamy warm white on your exterior. We're going to talk about, more of the traditional off-whites and how those compare to more of these greiges or creams on the exterior and all of that. So stick around. Hi everyone, I'm Ashley. I'm a virtual paint color consultant and decorator, and my job is to help you design a home you love. So let's find that perfect off-white paint color for your exterior. Okay, when I show you this color, it's Benjamin Moore Balboa Mist, you're gonna say, no way is this greige, somewhat of a darker greige color, gonna look like a creamy off-white on the wall on your exterior. However, you will be shocked. Colors lighten up so much when you bring them outside, and that's why people make so many mistakes when they're choosing a color for their exterior. They tend to only look at them inside and not bring them outside to see really what the sun does for the paint color. So if you're not familiar with LRVs, it stands for light reflectance value and has to do with how light or dark a paint color is. 100 is pure white, 0 is pure black. Now, most off-whites that people love and use those frequently in their homes have LRVs in the 80 to 89 range. Balboa Mist has an LRV of 65, so you can see it's considerably darker than, say, like White Dove that has an LRV of 83. Paint colors lighten up so much when you bring them outside. That's why typically you cannot choose what looks good on the inside in terms of what might look good on the outside. Look at the difference between White Dove and Balboa Mist. Huge, right? And now look and see how Balboa Mist looks on the outside. It's amazing how much that paint color lightened up. It's this perfect creamy vibe. If you are searching for that creamy off-white, this is definitely one to check out. Now indoors, Oyster White is a little bit darker than some people want if they're searching for that true off-white. It's a greige with a very neutralizing green undertone. Now greige, if you're not familiar, that's a combination of gray and beige. Oyster White has an LRV of 72, so it's much brighter than Balboa Mist, but outside, it's gonna be that perfect creamy white. It's almost what you would think like a White Dove, which is a really pretty creamy off-white, would look on your exterior. White Duck by Sherwin-Williams is a color that doesn't get too much attention, but it is a very warm, welcoming paint color inside. Outside, it looks just like Oyster White does, what you would imagine White Dove to look like a creamy off-white. It has an LRV of 73, so it's a little bit brighter than Balboa Mist, but still dark enough to not be blinding on your exterior. Now, here's a comparison of White Dove versus White Duck, so you can see just how different these two paint colors are and how much White Duck lightens up when you go outside. Now, if you have appreciated these creamy off-whites, but you've been longing for more of a true white, you're gonna love Benjamin Moore China White. It has an LRV of 76, so it's much brighter than even Balboa Mist or some of the other colors I showed you. However, it's going to appear like a true white outside without being blinding. So if you want that true white, you're gonna pair it with some really pretty haint blue shutters or really pretty sage shutters. This might be a color that you want to choose. Now, technically, China White is a greige with a very subtle, very easy to work with green undertone. So just keep that in mind when you are pairing China White with other colors for your exterior. Now, if you want something to look very creamy on your exterior, you really don't want an off-white, you want more of something that borders on a cream, you are gonna love Sherwin-Williams City Loft. It has an LRV of 70. It's the darkest paint color on this list, and probably the darkest that I would go if you want more of a white, creamy vibe on your exterior. It's technically a greige with, again, a very neutralizing green undertone, and it just, look how gorgeous it looks here. It's just that perfect, creamy white that is timeless and never goes out of style. Now, Sherwin-Williams Shoji White is a very popular paint color for interiors. However, when you take it and when you put it outside, it gives you this perfect creamy vibe. You are gonna be so happy with going with a color like this as opposed to a true off-white. This color is technically a very pale cream with a green undertone. Again, very easy to work with. It has an LRV of 74, so it's a little bit lighter, but it's still miles away from those too bright for outside off-whites that we know and love for our interiors. If you liked the creamy vibe of Shoji White, but you want something a little bit darker, you are gonna love Benjamin Moore Ballet White. It is a cream with a green undertone, and it has an LRV of 71. So it's much darker, much richer, and it's gonna look like a really pale cream / off-white on your exterior. Look how gorgeous it looks with these green shutters. I think this is the perfect paint color combination. Okay, now let's look at some of the popular off-white paint colors. Let's see what they look like outside on real houses, and let's compare those with some of the colors I gave you today, just so you can get a color comparison. Okay, so we have one house painted Sherwin-Williams Alabaster, and then you see China White. Now, Alabaster has an LRV of 82. So again, it's a pretty warm off-white, one of the warmest off-whites that there is on the market, and China White has that LRV of 76. There's not a huge difference between these two, but you do notice that China White is less white, less blinding, and more creamy on the exterior. Again, China White was one that I recommended for if you want that true white on your exterior, that's what I would use. You could also use Alabaster or White Dove by Benjamin Moore, but again, those are just going to be a little bit brighter, and if you have a lot of sun to contend with, that might end up being a little bit too blinding. Okay, let's go over some caveats you need to consider when you are choosing a white paint color for your exterior. The first thing you have to do is consider any stonework. You must look at the stonework and evaluate it for its undertone. You want to make sure the undertone in your stonework is going to work well with the white you're choosing. And the only way that you can do that is by testing the paint colors outside and seeing how they relate to each other. The second thing you need to contend with is, what do your neighbors' houses look like? If you are wanting to paint your house white, but most of the homes in your neighborhood are more of that earthy tone, that have earthy finishes, you want to go with a much creamier white. You want to go with Balboa Mist. You want to go with Shoji White. You want to go with City Loft. You don't want to go with something as bright as Alabaster or maybe even China White. That might be a little bit too white, too blinding for your neighborhood. The third thing you need to think about is the light that your home receives. Just like when you're testing paint colors inside, you know how paint colors can really change depending on the natural light your home receives. On the outside, if you have a lot of shade, you might want to choose a paint color with a higher LRV. If you have a lot of sun, you really kind of need to dial that LRV back, maybe choose something like Balboa Mist with a lower LRV. You don't want your house to be blinding, and the more sun you have, the more it's going to reflect that white paint color. Okay, lastly, let's talk about testing your paint colors. I mentioned it earlier. Do not test your paint colors inside. Don't even think about looking at them inside. In fact, when you look at a lot of these suggestions I gave you inside, you're going to say, no way, this is a grayish, this is a cream, this is not going to look like an off-white outside. When you bring those paint colors outside, you test them out, you will be totally shocked at how much they lighten and brighten up outside. Most of these colors that I gave you are going to look like an off-white or a very pale cream outside. So you want to get those big samples. I like those peel and stick samples. I do have a code for you down below that I will link. You put those behind a white poster board so you can truly see the paint color for what it is. None of this sampling them right onto your brick or right onto your siding. It is impossible to tell what you're looking at. You need to isolate the paint color behind a white sheet of paper or poster board so that you can truly see the color for what it is. So that's all I have for you today. Hopefully you have chosen the perfect white for your exterior. I do offer paint color consultations if you are interested in that. I will link that below, and feel free to ask me any questions in the comments below. I'll get to those as I can. Thanks so much for watching.